You're listening to Two Babies in a Business, a podcast about business, marketing, growth, strategy, staff, clients, babies, and marriage. I'm Christina. This is my husband and partner, Peter, and we are the founders and leaders of CIPR Communications. Hello.
Hi.
I always find it weird saying hello to you because we have talked plenty today.
Many times. Yeah. But hello again. How are you today?
I'm good.
Good. So what's the topic du jour?
Oh boy, French.
See? That's Spanish, I think. Anyways.
Wrong. Incorrect. Well, we've been talking about marketing budget, which is so important. So we talked about kind of sales funnel last time, but this is like, you've hopefully sharpened your pencil on understanding cost per lead and that piece we talked about last time. And now we're kind of getting into this operational cost perspective. And so, this is a bit loaded. I think complete disclosure, we are obviously an agency. We obviously have something to say and we think about this. So I would almost like us to approach this as business owners and leave that out of it, because I think in a few episodes from now, let's maybe debunk the marketing versus in-house staff a little bit further. And I'm assuming listeners can guess what our answer will be there. In some circumstances, some may be a surprise, but operational costs, what you need to consider in a marketing budget.
Yeah, it's a tough question and it's a big question, right? I think there's a lot of different questions you need to be asking yourself in terms of who's on your team internally right now, first of all, and what is their skill set? And I think importantly, what is their interest? Like if you hired a person to do sales and now you're getting them to do social media and you're getting them to do website edits and you're getting them is that what they want to be doing? Is that an efficient use of their time? So the question of costs is a big one, right? I think the first question really to ask yourself is, does your internal staff have the bandwidth? And I think also the skills to deliver. Because I think when, everybody, I'm going to say this, it's a bit cheeky, but sometimes I say to myself, people think that they're communications experts because they can speak English. And, there's a lot more that goes into a lot of these things than I think people appreciate. And that's not to say that people sometimes don't have incredible skills, and people that might be good at one thing might be good at another. But, really a deep understanding of the skill set of your team and the resources of your team is probably the starting point in terms of understanding your internal costs.
Yeah. And I think, going back to our last series about marketing strategy, you've probably fleshed out at this point what you want to be doing, what you need to be doing, your target audience. Now you're building kind of the financial component of it. So it's have one-on-one conversations. We do this internally with our own marketing stuff. Kaylin, is this an area that interests you? Do you have the bandwidth to do it? What do you think about this particular strategy? Marjana, hey, what if we added some paid PPC on this side? Could you handle I just think that there's these really honest conversations you need to have with staff. And yes, at the end of the day, if you're the boss, they're the staff, they have to do what you're doing. But someone who's passionate about it, likes it, and feels as if they're bought in and being brought into a strategy with their buy-in, I think is going to execute and do something for you that's that much better. I think about, CIPR of a few years ago now, when, marketing automation was really fresh on our minds, and marketing automation is amazing. And you can do incredible things with it, especially if you're a B2C company, B2B as well, but B2C, there's this, really cool ability to be continually targeting and talking to your audience. And we brought it in, an amazing tool. And, we had one of our staff, we kind of assigned it to them. I don't necessarily know if there was buy-in there from the beginning. Anyways, assigned to them, and there was no bandwidth. It was something that had a big learning curve. Marketing automation was new in general, not just new to our organization. And, we ended up spending a lot of money on this tool and never executing on it because we didn't ask those questions up front.
Yeah.
And so,
and I'm just going to interrupt you on that and say that came with a huge cost to us as an agency because we paid monthly for the tool.
Yeah.
We paid, lots and lots of time in terms of staff hours to try to figure it out. And it was always sort of a side of a desk project. So it was never front and center as a priority. And so, and then ultimately we ended up not going with the tool, and sort of like, all of those costs basically were garbage costs. And so, there's sort of like, you need to really think about costs from a perspective of like, what's the cost of failure as well?
Yeah.
What's the cost of an employee that's been tasked with doing something they don't like doing and are not good at? And that may decide to leave you at some point because they're unhappy in their job, or they don't feel like they're supported to be able to do the job that you've asked them to do. So, it's a big loaded question, I guess, is what I'm
It
sort of
is.
saying.
It's totally loaded. And I think about, and this has come with our maturity as business owners too, because I don't think we would have ever, well, we didn't consider these questions, but, yes, it's the cost of bandwidth for an internal resource and their passion and are they into it, but it's also what's the cost of training this person up. We spend countless hours training multiple individuals. I think even you went through the training on the particular tool we're talking about. So what was the cost of that? Multiple staff members going through it. And then what's the cost of all these tools as well? I think about things as simple. It's the beginning of the year. So I've been going through all of the monthly subscriptions that we have as a team and annual subscriptions. And you got to think about things like your Adobe costs, your creative suites, your Canva accounts, your everything, right?
It adds up really fast if you're not paying
Yeah.
attention. You can really quickly be paying thousands of dollars a month for tools that you're barely even using, right?
So when it comes to that operational perspective, I mean, this is just good for your business in general, but in talking about a marketing budget, it's okay, get that spreadsheet out. What's all the tools? Go back. When do you pay for them? How much do you pay for them? Are you on the right plans? Is there some tool that a marketing assistant you had 3 years ago invested in and now you're not using it? Can you get rid of it? So that's that operational cost too.
Yeah.
And then I think there's this, okay, you've done that, you've talked to staff, maybe you're starting to assign out tactics and make things work and the costs there, but maybe there's this like empty space. And I think that like in that regard, it's okay, are you hiring someone new? And then we'll get into that agency piece, but okay, if you have to hire someone new, okay, there's a salary there, but there's also the onboarding fees and the accounts that you're going to need to create for them. There's benefits and what are the costs to that piece, tax implications, like just that. Like you said, it is a can of worms, but I think when you're thinking about a marketing budget holistically in your company, you need to consider all of those things.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, I mean, kind of once you sort of figured out the bandwidth, we'll just say you have a person that's able to sort of, tackle your marketing internally. What does it cost for that internal staff to deliver? And again, I think you've kind of alluded to many of those things, but, those tools, those are a great example. I mean, an agency, yes, might be more expensive as an upfront cost, but like, you have to factor in the fact that we're paying for tools that if you hire an agency, you might not need to pay for yourself, right? So those are all loaded into our costs. And so, yeah, you might be paying a bit of a premium in terms of the monthly upfront fees, but you're not then committed to a 12-month contract for a tool that you can't get out of, or, I mean, I'll just obviously say too, like with employees and staff, I mean, if things aren't a fit and, there's a big cost of moving them along or moving them, like laying them off or doing whatever you need to do versus an agency. I mean, you can say this, but I mean, obviously if your agency is not working out, then you can part ways and it's a much lower cost to be able to do that. Right. So really, yeah, I mean, I think as we unpack this onion of layers here, it really, really starts to, I think, bring to light the fact that you really need to be like eyes open when it comes to thinking about your costs and being really honest with yourself about what those costs are. And I mean, I'll talk about our agency a little bit more in terms of we had a person when we started, a person who was really primarily a graphic designer who was sort of helping us with a number of different things. And then as we grew staff wise, that person got more and more focused on graphic design. And I mean, it was at a very high cost. And, if you think about us as an agency working with multiple clients at a time, you would think that our design, needs would be massive. And as it turns out, after time, we realized that it was cheaper just to contract out design work, and actually more effective and more efficient. And back to those tools, it's like, man, on the design side, there's a lot of expensive tools that you end up paying for, and photography and all of this stuff that it's like, it's a, it was like salary plus 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 in terms of the actual cost of what that designer cost us in house, right? Yeah, and then I mean, I think it was even shocking to us when we made the decision to not have an in-house designer, to use contractors. I mean, I would say our costs went down by 3/4 for design work, right? And we're still delivering the same amount of design, maybe a little bit less, but for our clients, right? So
Yeah, I just think, to your point, like, this is a big onion. And I look forward to kind of spending a full episode on talking about the differences between in-house and agency. But, at this part in your budget, it's about understanding, do you have the capacity in-house to do it? Do you need to think about a budget for external support in terms of an agency? Do you need to think about a budget in terms of hiring? And what I will say too, and we have awesome clients that, obviously have some in-house marketing folks as well. And it's great, right?
yeah,
So to be able to have those collaborative conversations, I'm thinking of two clients in particular that have recently are either hiring or have just hired. And they spent a lot of time with us refining a job description, one, making sure that they're not creating a job description for a marketing person that doesn't exist,
yes,
right? So those kind of catch-all, I need a
yeah,
marketing person that can code my website, make me a strategy, execute a campaign, do design, and take photos. It's
yeah,
like, that's many people.
yeah, yeah. That's
um,
an important point. And I think we should stop on that point, not stop on that point, but spend a second on that point. Is that
yeah,
like, we often get, to your point, clients being like, hey, what do you think about this job description for a new marketing coordinator that we're going to pay $30,000 to? And it's like, literally, you've just put in 8 different people's positions in terms of specialties. Those people do not exist. Like, there's so many different skills people are trying to hire for. And it's like, really got to drill down and think about what are the skill sets that are going to drive the most value for your business. And I mean, there's some interesting trends happening right now in terms of like the in-house, and companies are bringing more of certain things in-house, and then they're using agencies for certain things. And the stuff that's being more done in-house is around content development and content writing, and a little bit around design. Depends on the size of your company, obviously, but you know those areas where an intimate relationship and an intimate knowledge of the company is really important, is where the trends are showing more in-house. And then those areas where there's like a really technical skill set needed, is where the agencies are being more used. And so, that's one way to think about this particular
this
question.
is obviously a subject that we're quite passionate about. Spoiler alert, we're going to do a whole series on in-house versus agency. And I think it's important because it's a question that comes up a lot. So I really am going to tie a bow on that, like you just said. But I think the last question, so you've asked questions about operational costs. You've thought about your in-house resourcing. You've thought about, do you need to hire someone or potentially an agency? You've thought about all those tools and what they cost. You've made your big spreadsheet. And I think the last interesting question that you need to ask yourself about operational costs is, what's the cost of inaction? So if you don't do anything, if you don't do any marketing, are you going to lose your share or your place in your marketplace? Is nothing going to happen? Do you not have competition coming up? And maybe that's a signal that you need to ramp down, right? So I think there's some potential too for you to look around and go, if I don't do anything, is it going to hurt my business? And generally, you need to do some marketing.
Yeah.
But take a solid look at your operational costs and think about, if I didn't do anything from a marketing perspective, what does my sales funnel look like right now? What are things that aren't giving me any value or are giving me value, and kind of have a deep look at that perspective too.
Yeah. And I'll just add one more final note and question on that, is like, what's the cost of doing half measures, and not really achieving anything? So it's like, maybe you're doing some actions, you're taking some actions, and you have some in-house people doing some stuff on the side of their desk, but it's never really front and center. And it really doesn't really move the needle forward. And I would suggest the cost of that is much higher even than the cost of doing nothing, because at least if you're doing nothing, you're not actually spending money in-house internally to do kind of half things. And so it's sort of like, you know, you're either gonna go for it or you're not, right? And being in the middle. My new favorite saying of 2021 is neither here nor there. If you're neither here nor there, i.e., either doing something significant or not doing anything, probably that middle ground is the worst place to be, in my opinion.
Well, on that note, don't get stuck in the middle.
Yeah, don't be neither here nor there.
Neither here nor there. Next time we're going to talk about goals. We love talking goals.
Nice.
Bye.
Till next time.